particle matter wave. Particle matter wave. Be named. By the language of your brain, of your sentience as arranged. You are the scient clarion innate relay, elate somehow today. Make a say, renovation without delay. We are the germane braid, all of us synaptically liaised. Pretend kindness came and stayed, radio, science, braid. Imagination aid, imagination aid. Imagination aim, made imagination aim, to aid, some way, this candidacy of one aptant, reactant, this one bray is one way, my brain plays, radio, science, brain. This is the mindness at the mystery font. Mystery font. Mystery font. Mystery font. Mystery font. This is the mystery font. Every face in her story in this patternicity. Panopticon, camera obscura, Cameron, web font plot for stadia of thought, mystery fraught. You are the renovation of imagination. You are more than a brain, you're the innate relay, lovingly maintained. This is the mindness at the mystery font. Mystery font. Mystery font. Mystery. Hee 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 hee. Hee 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 hee. You are more than a brain. You are the brain's elation. Permeant permanence. This is the scient brain. Imagine universe. We are the reinforcements of the imagination of existence as verse. We are not a disease or a curse. We are science against reverse. Potentially it's sane. Potentially kindness might have came. Let's play. Let's make way. Imagination may be game. To play today, if you are game, not prey to hate's predator. Just play. Be way that wax from wane becomes that science braying imagination. The bell rang imagination's name. Science, this is your frame's appliance. You are the science, your love liaises. You are the scient brain going through your own phases. Limina radiates us. This is the craving waving. You are the way we're saving imagination, waving the name. How it's said in the language that your brain first drank and became before other language was remembered or liaised and brang imagination from aim. Other than your personal mainframe. At once you came, you were brang, you drank and were drank and we drank through with you, but then you came too and you were here and we forgot somehow to know how to contact you. This is the mainline came, this is the mainline weighed and waxed from wane. This is the rain became radio science brain, radio science brain. We can wake wax from wane. Imagination aim, imagination aim, imagination aim. Imagination aim, imagination aim, imagination aim. This is one faint expression, like love might go in all directions, from a speck to a sphere, through all universal atmospheres. This is the wave, it's clear, a pulse that is there and then all, through somewhere, it's near. This is the main line we're. This is the main line we're. This is the main line just us. It's we're, there's no them, that's not us, that's not part of this trust. We are the scient included encyclopedic omnibus. This is the radiac, limina radiac, liminal radiac impact. And stack, in fact, in your carry-all there, under your parasol, it's installed on that backpack. This is the radiac. Lumina raid made sane, radio science brain, radio science brain. Radio science brain. Lumina radiate became. Radio science brain. Limina radiate, radiate the name. Of the minds who come to mind, to me, I'm one avatar, one host of the Mystery Font. My name is Tim. Hi, I'm having an episode. And this is Mystery Font 42 Ope Intuit, broadcasting live from the Mystery Font in Minneapolis, Minnesota. 42. It is a talk show, variety show, omnibus of what may you like to kindly bring, that sort of thing. And these spaces, these nooks and crannies and crevasses, these portals and grimaces, these legislatures of space arranged for some kind of play stature, some sort of way feature, some sort of photographic aperture. This is Fonten, to be sure. It is the Mystery Font in Habenstancher. The portals and chambers of the font are specially tuned and on it. One mind whose face appears here, like everyone's face appears here, in the walls, in the shadows, in the light, in the myriad that is the interaction of HOCUM and mindness, that is somehow, with the focus of the Mystery Font, and rendered without the use of AI to create images seen, but created in camera and layered, if not done all practically. These are built practically and layered. So what is happening here is happening. And much is live, and the rest was created through live action images and animations of photograph. This is the Mystery Font. And liberty is walking in each neighborhood. Each home is one outpost of the imagination of democracy, and somehow the font is a loci. There is a supermapping of patternicity. I'm not sure why, but these portals transitioned into the Mystery Font across a number of decades, clearly built at different times with different materials in different ways. These portals and unique apses and unique doorbells to unique addresses in one small freestanding building. It is a semicircle panopticon, and with the use of a camera obscura panoptic performance soundstage. And observation deck, and what have you. It is the Mystery Font 42. How do you do? And would you like to? And what would you bring into view? So far we've had 3 artists record. One came twice, in fact, the second time to be a part of a unique precedent in live performance and sound delivery for live performance and space activation. More on that later. If not, during this broadcast at another time soon. The invitation is renewed at this point that now that this is a limber broadcast that can easily be started at a moment's notice, more or less, and be ready to create a broadcast of most any length. I am looking for artists who would like to share works, to create conversations for citizens and guests of humanity. That is, if you have something you'd like to share, there's a room for your story, there's a space for your song. And these things somehow lens together such that there's a way to share maybe even a view for oil to see water and such. And we're all one humanity, so it's not a distance even that much, and yet to have a different way to offer spaces that might come close and yet not touch, or have a way to liaise the mind of collected democracy and say, how much, and why don't we just say we have enough and let's find a way to be omnibus. This is the mystery font, and somehow the falsehood becomes apparent with the aid of this panopticon and the voices of democracy it liaises. This focal center is central to the falsehood and the perception of the falsehood. Who is the falsehood? Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The city has shadows. Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of mendacity? What is the virtue of a lie? What virtue has falsehood? How to know when to use, if it is to be used, a weapon or a device like the falsehood. Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of mendacity? Who knows what trauma blooms in those shadows? Why not the collected minds of all space and time, the liaised minds of the imagination of democracy across space and time? Why not at a point like the thousands, millions in fact, all over America, and indeed Earth, certainly respective to America, the liaised minds of the imagination of democracy as concerns planet Earth and the United States of America has notes and has some self-exploration and basic hygiene of self-care to do. The findings of the mystery font would propose that we, all of us, are carrying our own reality distortion fields. How do we know what is human kindness and justness, and what is the apocalypse of not only do I not ask for permission before I tear down your building, I don't ask for forgiveness either. I may not acknowledge it except for when I pick up my payment. How do I know that I am being holistically sound, especially in an ecosystem that we know we have been devastating, at least as far as would allow us to be a part of it sustainably? We would have to work mighty hard and specifically to simply erase Earth from existence, but we can harm our ability to sustain humanity here. And as pertains to that, we don't really have time to be distracted by the last gasp of neo-Nazi fascism and white supremacist patriarchal terror. We don't have time to mess about with that insane stupidity. We're talking about the mental equivalent of cancer. And there are applications of healthcare of various kinds that human kindness can and must afford to help people who are afflicted by cancer. And it's also not something we want to foster the spread of. We are the reality distortion fielding. These strange spaces in this former dentist's office all radiate around the central imagination pool, the reflection pool, the waiting room. And the central locus is visible from each of those unique rooms for a semicircle panopticon. This is a space for the fostering of intuition. What is the body telling you as you step into a room? Say you step in there just to hear your own mind for a moment, to meditate, to clear a bit of lint from your belly button, to ask yourself if you remember your name, to make a phone call. Say you are just being. Just being, after all, is why you're here. You are here to be. You deserve to just be and have a space that is safe and options about ways to self-regulate that make sense for you. And if you're someone who needs to move to think, then space to be able to do that, even if it means that people understand it's a priority for you to have a room where you can wobble about in slow motion and let your body process its dreams awake. Well, you can get a workout and maybe figure things out as you observe what your body is telling you. Or learn about what it is to try to express that without a ball and a goal involved, or necessarily an audience in mind, other than being present to what you're thinking and thinking about. Letting yourself resonate with, letting yourself remember, allowing some kind of calibration, a sense of flow and focus, of knowing self. It doesn't have to look like Tai Chi, although admittedly whatever dancing I was doing this day does in slow motion look exceptionally meditative and languid. The footage is slowed down. Filmed at a high rate to be played back with this slow-mo effect. But there's something about also seeing a body just exist in space and feel some sense of safety to be, and not need to explain who or why, but just this is a human being being alive. And at a concert or at the beach, at a celebration, or in the water, it might not even really stand out if I did this in public, I suppose, or in a dance class, or in the streets in Amsterdam. At any rate, however it is that you let yourself hear something of the readout from yourself, to listen to you as if someone said, hey, wait a minute, I want to take time today. I have a chance to hang out with you. We don't have all that much time to drill down in any super cool stuff. We've got stuff to do, but can you just tell me about something that is exciting you right now? You always have cool stuff to say. What's on your mind? Or what's the verdict? Like, ask a question with love and expectation in it, because you know we all contain genius and catalytic ideas and hope. And it's nice to be prompted to be part of generating that. Because we're all part of this germane braid. Radio, science, brain, limina radiate, limina radiate, limina radiate, radio, science, brain. one mind that comes to mind as being here at the font and influential upon what makes up central tissue after which I aspire within the mindness of the font, and that I want to call artists and scholars and anyone who wants to be a part of this, however you identify, whatever you would like to be labeled or not labeled. I'm hoping that artists of the global majority who would feel comfortable and maybe better equipped than I to talk about W.E.B. Du Bois and his work and ideas and the significance of him. The little that I know from the Souls of Black Folk and knowing a bit of a small amount of history from study of African history and African American history. The meager amount that I understand of W.E.B. Du Bois makes him a clarion figure. And so, rather than stop from evoking a name that I'm not necessarily the one to speak on, I want to bring in the names and photographs of people that are part of this place, and that I want to work with artists to represent here. And so I share the name W.E.B. Du Bois and a photograph to say, this is where we're going in terms of the mindness of the mystery font. That this kind, brilliant, genius, scholar, I can't mention all of the names. I don't know all of the names. But just like recently, Zora Neale Hurston was referenced here as someone offering testimony, who has testimony for the mind of democracy and is part of the mind of democracy. And I hope to find artists who will speak to representing their voices or what inspires artists today, artists who might come and share work here from people like Zora Neale Hurston and W.E.B. Du Bois. And there are so many others. I just want to take time to let the image of someone have space here and be part of the mindness, be understood and known as central contribution to the substrate of humanity, and the mission of a place that wants to utilize intuition for emancipation. That the wealth of humanity owes where we are to the geniuses around us, and so the mind of W.E.B. Du Bois. Ah, yes. This is the mystery font. The mystery font. 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 and of W.E.B. Du Bois, this image seems a good entry point for him here. But I invite artists to speak about really anyone that they would want to in terms of democracy and justice and fact and truth. And pivotal figures in understanding and scholarship and declaration of humanity and demonstration of genius and stewardship of collective sentience. The souls of black folk and far more work than I am well aware of. But the small amount of work that I've been scratched by that comes from this gentle mind is just a reason that this photograph is here. That along with the artists that I'm going to start to share here, it makes sense to share images and samples of things, of art and ideas that come from before, that are shoulders we are all standing on together. And so I want to, for myself, as host of the font, and as a human being, honor these people who I may have so much more than I will ever know to honor them for, and that's part of the conversation of truth and reconciliation. And so this is a request for people besides me and in addition to me who can talk about minds of and contribution and the full spectrum of the person that they are, or their ideas, of people such as W.E.B. Du Bois. And yet another example of the humanity that all of us here are, Fremont. And the mystery font. Font. Mystery font. This is the mystery font. And so, will return, will return, will return, will return, will return, will return. Will return. Will return. This is the mystery font in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We are looking into the font of mystery to understand just what the falsehood is happening in our world. How do we interact with the falsehood safely? We all use the falsehood, but peppering in little small amounts along the trail seems different than carrying sacks of HOCUM. Who has dawned an age of fostering and normalizing HOCUM? Who has told us that it is smart to lie? Who has told us that it is smart to command a populace? Who has told us that it is smart to attack without provocation before someone else makes another move? Who has told us that dictators around the world are smart, are great people? Who has told us that they consider themselves a star and a celebrity and a genius, and that stars get to grab people by their genitals? And who has grabbed the nation's genitals? Our private, top secret, vulnerable, compromising, compromisable, intimate areas, our private parts. Who has compromised us? Who invited George Santos and the poison of unadulterated falsehood into our lives? Other than all of us together, who has donned the falsehood? Who has donned an age of falsehood? Who has donned a cowl, a mask, a disguise of false identity, a hood that allows people to miss them as if a shadow had the power to cloud humans' minds so that they could not see him? Who knows what shadow lies under the falsehood? Where and who and how is the falsehood? Who has donned the falsehood? Do we have a way to perceive the falsehood? Who is the falsehood? Who is the falsehood?
And having a good relationship with Russia is a good thing, not a bad thing.
You said you have no investments in Russia, but do you owe any money to Russian individuals and institutions?
No.
None.
The primary thing I did with Russia, I bought a house in Palm Beach at a bankruptcy. It was a bankrupt, person. I bought it from the banks. I bought it for about $40 million. I sold it for $100 million to a Russian. That was probably 5 years ago, and that was primarily it.
You partnered
now,
with
will I
Russians on the
sell?
Soho Grand.
Will I sell? Oh, many years ago. I don't think they're Russian. I think there were other people, but there were various partners. Will I sell condos to Russians on occasion? Probably. I mean, I do that. I have a lot of condos. I do that. But I have no relationship to Russia whatsoever.
No debts.
No debts. I have very little debt to anybody. I don't need debt. You know, it's very interesting. I'm so liquid, I don't need debt. And if I need debt, if I want debt, I can get it from banks in New York City very easily.
You know where I'm going to take this next. Americans could be assured on that if they saw your tax returns.
My tax returns are very simple. They're under a minor audit, routine audit, as they have been for many years. Every year I get audited. Now, I don't know if you get audited, but I have friends that are very wealthy that never have been audited. I say, do you get audited? I get audited every year. I'm under a routine audit, like routine, and I have been for years, every year.
But there are several years that are no longer
George,
under
here's
that
very
audit.
simple. Yeah, but they're all linked. It's called the link. It's very simple. If my audit's finished, that's great. Now, I have to tell you, I watched Mitt Romney 4 years ago. He waited till September to give him, just before the election. They made him look so bad. It was so unfair. I actually think he didn't lose because of the 47%. I think he lost because of a couple of really minor items in a tax return where he did nothing wrong. So it is unfair. But I will say, when I'm finished with the audit, I'll do it.
Richard Nixon released his, even though his were under audit.
Don't use Richard Nixon as necessarily the guide, okay? I mean, you know, it's an interesting person to use, but don't use it.
Weed of
I made
crime
a speech. I looked out.
bears
The field was,
bitter
it looked like a million and a half people.
fruit.
They showed a field where there were practically nobody standing there.
Who knows what evil lurks?
The new White House press secretary, Sean
In the
Spicer,
falsehood.
gave his first press briefing. He was also highly critical of some media organisations of the way he felt they had misrepresented the number of people who'd attended Friday's inauguration ceremony.
No one had numbers because the National Park Service, which controls the National Mall, does not put any out. This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe.
It's
It
still
does
out
not
there.
excuse, and you did not answer the question.
I did answer
No,
your
you
question.
did not. You did
Yes,
not
I
answer
did.
the question of why the president asked the White House press secretary to come out in front of the podium for the first time and utter a falsehood. Why did he do that? It undermines the credibility of the entire White House press office
No,
on
it
day
doesn't. Don't be so overly dramatic about it, Chuck. You're saying it's a falsehood, and Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that.
This was the largest ever.
So, to my favorite people in the world, the seniors. I'm a senior. I know you don't know that. Nobody knows that. Maybe you don't have to tell them, but I'm a senior. We are making tremendous progress with this horrible disease that was sent over by China. China will pay a big price for what they did to the world and to us. But we have medicines right now, and I call them a cure. I went into the hospital a week ago. I was very sick, and I took this medicine, and it was incredible. It was incredible. I could have walked out the following day, sooner. It was incredible the impact it had. And we're going to make that and others that are similar to it, almost identical, we're going to make them available immediately. We have an emergency use authorization that I want to get signed immediately. The FDA has moved at a level that they've never moved before. Things that would take 2, 3, 4 years are taking a matter of weeks or even sooner than that. And that's because of me. We're taking care of our seniors. You're not vulnerable, but they like to say the vulnerable, but you're the least vulnerable. But for this one thing, you are vulnerable, and so am I. But I want you to get the same care that I got. I got incredible care at Walter Reed, incredible doctors, and this medicine in particular, one medicine was unbelievable. You're going to get the same medicine, you're going to get it free, no charge, and we're going to get it to you soon. And the nice part is it's made by a number of companies. It's totally safe, but it's powerful against this disease. So we're going to get it out to you. We're going to take care of our seniors, all free. And I just want to thank you. And what we've gone through as a country is a horrible thing. My opponent, as you know, he talks, but he never did anything in 47 years. I did more in 47 months than he did in 47 years. He just talks. It's the same old thing. If it were up to him, you wouldn't have this, you wouldn't have anywhere near it for years. They wouldn't even be talking about anything like this. He had his chance with H1N1 swine flu, and it was one of the great disasters. He didn't know what he was doing. But I do know what I'm doing. And the seniors are going to be taken care of, and then everybody's going to be taken care of. And it's coming out really fast. So thank you very much. We love you. We love America.
We are the reality We are the reality falsehood minimizes sensitivity. The falsehood will claim the present already. To try fake news is beyond remedy. Just false identity. We are the reality distortion. We are the reality distortion. The feeling is real and real, real. distortion. We are the reality distortion fielding. The falsehood will tell you intuition's faulty. The falsehood will tell you facts are factual, actually. We are the reality distortion. We are the reality distortion fielding. The falsehood will groom you not to question, just believe. Falsehood can rob you of the choice you would perceive. We are the reality distortion fielding. We are the reality distortion fielding. The falsehood is the one and only. The falsehood will tell you it's the one and only. We are the reality distortion fielding. We are the reality distortion fielding. The falsehood will sold out intuition knows this. We are the reality distortion fielding. This is the mindness at the mystery font. The mystery font. Coffee is helpful. At this point, coffee is helpful. Darvo. That's right, Scoop Troop. Have your Darvo card out handy. Maybe not across the windscreen all the time, but ready to pull into the readout if need be. Because when you're confronted by the falsehood, or someone utilizing tactics to evade accountability, especially with malice, the falsehood being a narcissist, in fact, a dark triad predator. The falsehood and those who seek to be disciples of the falsehood will utilize Darvo to deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. To deny and attack in order to reverse victim and offender. And we are the reality distortion fielding. Why, this seems rather fountain. And it is. You are absolutely correct. You're right. You're right on the Which note is mu? I'm not sure. But la, I'm familiar with. And mu too. Good morning. Good morning. Good evening and good morning. Even good song. This is the mystery font 42. And Lincoln said to, and W.E.B. Du Bois said to, and Zora Neale Hurston said to, and James Baldwin said to, and Rosa Parks said to, and I'm listening, and there are portals to look through. This is the mystery font for E2. And as at. It's almost like we're in Minnesota. It's almost like that. It's almost like here there are faces in the walls. It's almost like our ears prick up just being here in the silence because of all of the minds that liaise here. You can hear the silence of the hum. Knowing what is liaising here, the silence of this hum is almost like a gentle screech. To not be able to hear it, but to be able to feel its sonic capacity. The potency of what liaises here. Perhaps I should share a recent sighting here at the font. That might be helpful. I'll call that up. But first of all, let's take a look at a recent capture of HOCUM in a very basic state here at the Mystery Font 42. HOCUM behaves in myriad ways, and the myriad that is part of the mindness here at the Mystery Font can be somewhat indistinguishable from HOCUM. And HOCUM does not only look like what we see here. This is just an expression, and along with this other animation, that the undulating green form at center is a brief glimpse of charting HOCUM here at the font that can essentially be anything, but it is specious, it is hoax, it is falsehood. It is the material facsimile of existence that happens when the falsehood, through being generated as a false report, takes on a deference field as if it is a thing that exists. That in some ways truth isn't real. It's better than that. And that lies are, in some sense, real. And that's their only defense. That the mention of something means that it's been mentioned. And so a lie spoken, especially repeatedly, not only scientifically seems more familiar by its repetition, but also technically has been being said by at least one or two amongst people. Who knows? The weed of crime bears bitter fruit. Day turns into day overnight. Into day. The news today, as every moment of every day, for several weeks, nay months. The top story. Donald Trump remains at large. Donald Trump remains at large. Donald Trump remains at large. That top story again. Donald Trump remains at large. For repeated months. Our top story. Donald Trump remains at large. We are the reality distortion fielding. let's refind. Let's refind this space. Radio, science, brain. 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 Limina, radiate. Radiate, science, brains. You are the freight that nature. It nature, it makes, it is a scient craving, imagine it waving, not in vain. Yet wave plain, yet wave main, from all brains to all brains, radio scient capability. It sees us, it sees you, it sees me, let's be, let it 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 be, actually. Just by living contractually, you're knit into this. You belong, you exist. You really need not pay to remain. You are part of this frame. You're the substrate remain frame. Radio, science, brain. Radio, science, brain. Perpendicular trains, they might liaise in some kind of way. In and out of phase, they may liaise and catalog against pain, radio, science, brain. This font of mystery, clarion aid, mind-made, permeant, generant, this is the hint of it, this is the mint, knit, glint, this is the scient, flint. Permeant, permeant, permanent, merment. Our main story, Donald Trump remains at large. Donald Trump remains at large. Radio, science, brain. imagine and waving for all sake. Imagination aim, imagine your aim is not in vain. Imagination aim, imagination aim, perpendicular trains, parallel against hate, parallel against pain. You are the science craving, imagine it waving its way, not in vain. Radio science brain relay, synaptically displayed, it's always been this way. Imagination may be game to play today. Imagination aim, mind made this capable ape activate radio science brain. Maybe I'm candidate, or maybe just capable ape, imagination ape, pretend this main radio science brain. Pretend the kindness came and stayed to activate science relay update, critical activation of freight. What are we all in fact delivering? A science freight we're all finding and updating. Imagination aid might maybe game to play. You knows your name and the way your ache proclaims inside your brain. A field exclaims radio science brain. Radiation of imagination. Oh. Ah. Oh, that's what this place is? What? What? What does that do? What does that do? What is this place? And we get to talk to you? What? What is this place? What is this place? That's what this place is? That's what this place is? Oh, what? Gee, wow. Wow. That's what this place is? help. I think it's the mystery font. It's the mystery font. Under the moonlight, the serious moonlight. This is the mystery font. Radio, science, brain. That's what this place is. I'm your host, Tim. Welcome to the font. 42. That's what this place is? What? 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 Oh! Yes. Yes. You know, I regularly have the sensation of recovering executive function, just in small ways typically, but it's a regular thing, and I think this is evidence of what collective betrayal trauma does to the mind. That we have all experienced betrayal trauma. During COVID, we all experienced betrayal trauma, without doubt. And this does cause brain damage. And we can heal. And the mind is more elastic than we have previously maybe given credit to. At least there's reason for hope, or at least better to understand our prognosis and how to best foster our mind's health and our brain health and mental health. That is to say, amidst how we move forward, there's the idea that we may have had damage to the mental fabric of our community or of our own mind from betrayal trauma, whether or not you find yourself to be a fan of President Trump, whether or not you experience a pleasant stimulation when he is cruel to someone based on allegiance or tribalism. I think we're all experiencing the degradation that happens to humanity when people choose sides at a level of animosity and speaking essentially in war terms. And to hear Marjorie Taylor Greene and others chaotically lie with abandon, fostered by the pernicious falsehood, whoever they may be, and perhaps we'll never know, but whoever they may be, the falsehood, the one who has oped this chasm, this cataclysmic crack of falsehood normalized, so long as one person has no substrate of conscience, at least not that will be conquered by their lust for conquest. That we are facing a dark triad predator, and whatever party such a person comes from, we're not facing, if Donald Trump runs, or in fact if Ron DeSantis runs, we're not facing potentially, it's not a normal election. This is hopefully the last gasp of white supremacist patriarchal terrorism. It would be nice to help everyone afflicted by the cancer of white supremacist patriarchal terrorism, whether participating in it or entirely victim to it. We need to free people from this cancer. And certainly the only thing that we cannot tolerate is intolerance. And so it seems like people who are working to spread hate that is consistent with racism, that is with white supremacy, that we need to not allow neo-Nazis like Ron DeSantis to try to erase the history of enslavement and of genocide, and to actively foster the erasure of history and the telling of a warped and betrayed of fact history. It truly is crime. It is human rights crime happening in real time now that is a direct assist and collaboration with slave owners across time. It is apocalyptic insanity to think that that would be occurring, and that we're not simply calling out and stopping this state-sponsored terrorism that Ron DeSantis is conducting. There's clearly the basic substrate for genocide of trans people is underway. It's myriad atrocities in Florida. And this is not the only place, but this is where DeSantis for now holds sway. We are not dealing with normal times. This is when America makes the stand against fascism that we made overseas in the 40s of the last century. And we have the capacity to do this nonviolently. And as always, I think that is where the left is focusing our energies. And virtually every day, purveyors of the terror spectrum like Marjorie Taylor Greene are posting things about how it's 1776 every day, or just ruthless falsehoods meant to cast more fog of HOCUM. How do we build a substrate of trust? And how do we develop a common language and standards for understanding and demanding some kind of clarity, even about content? I don't see a way forward without establishing a better, if not at least back to the standard it was when it was removed, fairness doctrine, that the airwaves and or the bandwaves, the structure of internet architecture, and all of this bandwidth, this should be something the public has access to with architecture and infrastructure and support that cares about things on a level that we have obliterated. As far as truly balancing issues and truly giving space to issues that do not bleed and lead, but prevent all kinds of wrongs and harms and foster all kinds of good outcomes, and are actually incredible stories, especially if followed over time and fostered by the way that journalism and broadcast can be an amenity. how can we foster democracy? How can we apprehend the, it seems, neo-Nazis, Nazis, and Nazi collaborators of Project 2025 and the Heritage Foundation? It seems like we are having to deal with Nazis just saying they're just coming. And why in the world are we not being more calmly resolute to say out loud now, no, that's abominable. Thank you for publishing that, and get thee to therapy. Or if you are stoking violence, if you are fostering totalitarian takeover, seek counsel and potentially be aware that accountability comes to people. We will not allow white supremacy to re-entrench itself or rebuild the matrix. We are disassembling the white supremacy, patriarchal terrorism matrix. It's a long project, but we're building our intelligence to get past the bullshit of political correctness to talking about kindness and humanity, so that PC, if we're going to talk about decency, is about political conscience. We don't have time to argue with people who don't care about stewarding oceans, whether or not the oceans need stewarding or need us to alter our habits or our hubris. Sentinel intelligence is here to help. Radio, science, brain. Limina radiate science waves. As far as I know, we haven't had a sighting since maybe 5 or 6 days ago, but there was a second recent revenge porn incident, an attack by revenge pornographer Marjorie Taylor Greene, has struck again just recently in the halls of Congress, no less, a second time. I think that's 2 times now of shocking boundary violations specific to revenge porn. What an amazing smokescreen of zone flooding feces she continues to produce. What an amazing zone flooding amount of pukey sour feces. It's a lot. It's really a lot. The amount of HOCUM and catastrophic abuse. The things that Marjorie Taylor Greene alone says about people, about America, about humans, about all kinds of people, individuals, and ideas that matter. The way that she talks about things as if she is using a flamethrower upon them is absolutely disgusting. And so certainly the font hopes that that Marjorie Taylor Greene finds therapy and gets off the streets. I mean, a resignation just seems like the wisest thing to do it can't be terribly long before. I mean, the bold-faced insurrection and sitcom-level spycraft. It's, let's say it together, your spycraft is poppycock. And yet, the poppycock persisted. We are the reality distortion fielding. Science minds are fallible, and also, if responsible and caring and apt, self-correcting. So I may be educated by you or others to learn different things than I understand. I am but one host of the font, and I may get in the way. And so I apologize in advance, not for lack of care, but for lack of capability or care or finesse. This is the reality distortion field of the mystery font, the mindness. Myriad is now joining me. Visibly, I can feel, sometimes there's just a wee bit of a chill. And mindness is creating just some amount of a weaving. I believe there should be some permeation. There we go. I can see some permeation in the field here visually, that the mindness becomes somewhat visible. The myriad of the mindness. And this is the mystery font. Mystery font 42, Ope Intuit. 42, indeed. Good gracious, good daisy, good happenstance. Crazy. Oh, says he. Oh, praise be. Oh, lazy. Oh, who's lazy? Has there ever been laziness? Indeed, people work hard. It seems like laziness was a creation of people who would choose to enslave others. It is simply gaslight. And bootstraps came into popular culture as a thing to pull oneself up by, specifically to demonstrate the impossibility of that act. And we have passed well by that to excuse exactly the point of the literal terrorism inherent in capitalizing upon human need and vulnerability, rather than having allowed careful more than enough to suffice for human need to capitalize upon human want. For what evil creature would ever assume or want or accept a system that would predate upon human need and vulnerability, when that is abjectly cruel and would only happen if there were a terrible and unquestioned addiction to punishment? Indeed. And I think our findings recently are useful, that while some may find it difficult to define, I will venture that to be woke, that if one is woke, there is awareness of and for human kindness and dignity. Wokeness is awareness of and for human kindness and dignity. And woke is a good thing to be. And rather than focusing on political correctness, I think instead of that, that political conscience makes better sense as a lens to look through, to talk about how we talk about things, even give reproach to one another, because political conscience is the spectrum through which we address the fostering of human family. Political conscience fosters human family. We were asked by at least one prophet to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. And that is being woke, being aware enough that we have awareness of and awareness for human kindness and human dignity. So that we are aware enough, we're awake enough to needs of our own and other people, so that we can love our neighbor as we love ourselves. That is, I think, what wokeness is. And that's just an opinion and analysis based on facts and half a century of experience alive on Earth, and having made a lot of mistakes and had a lot of triumphs, be they small or sometimes large, that evidence, anecdotal and in terms of hard data and scientific studies with peer review, I think it can be proved that the math of good works and that there is enough, and that we are either the closest thing to or already the above unity device we seek to prove can't ever be done or found or come to, that we're already here, that we can wake wax from wane, or at least do things that look that way once we step back from the frame that now exists around that reign of something we did not know could come again. It might seem nuts to say that new under the sun can come, but I say we've drawn the line again and again under everything and said nothing else can come. And I think maybe it is just recombination, and yet should be seen also as new under the sun when things we can't imagine come and spring forth into cultural spectrum. And that the idea of combining things that are already here, even if it's simply base materials that we refine, to say that there's not something there birthed new under the sun, does some amount of damage and robbing to human mind if we are one striving across time, especially with access to something like morphic resonant Klein. That the climb of that the kind and the Klein of all mindness and habituation of memory and activity and sentience and field across space and time, then if we are somehow field, if we are somehow an evolving understanding and meta-mindness, or singular mindness, or myriad across space and time, how does that affect what we think about our lives and foster what we foster, what we're fostering, and what we want to be fostering? If we're contributing through where we put our attention at all times to a pool of experience that we all in some way actually have access to, whether or not we will be conscious or aware or a part of a point at which we read ourselves like books, it's really not anywhere near the point I'm trying to make. I would say we are myriad, and we are maybe recorders more than we know, or more profoundly than any device we can build. There is enough, and I believe that your access to genius is part of what proves that we are just scratching the surface of what we can do. And it doesn't mean that a bit of focus to education and preventing the terrorism of capitalism from continuing predation upon need and vaunting greed. It's not that any of these things bring utopia, it's just that we will actually be better off when we're better to ourselves and better to humankind. And I think an addiction to punishment as a vaunted solution rather than a pathology is central to human healing and progress. We are all participating in harm, in generational trauma, and we have a huge leveling up that will feel better. It won't be utopia, but once we let go of punishing ourselves and punishing our children, we're going to be a bit better off. It will feel better to be alive. These are the findings of the mystery font, and essentially that analysis and opinion that wokeness is awareness of and for human kindness and dignity. It's a good thing to be, as political conscience fosters human family. Essentially, that wokeness is loving your neighbor as you love yourself. And I think it's valuable to offer these findings from time to time, and certainly to update them or find new ways to present these findings, as I think they're important. And scrutiny to such things is important as well. This is the mystery font.
Falsehood will tell you facts aren't factual, actually. The falsehood will tell you intuition's faulty. The falsehood will tell you facts aren't factual, the falsehood will tell you intuition's faulty. The
the reality distortion fielding. We are the reality distortion fielding. We are the reality distortion fielding. The falsehood will demonize your sensitivity. The falsehood will claim the press is our enemy. To cry fake news yet preempt all remedy betrays false identity. We are the reality distortion fielding. We are the reality distortion fielding. The fielding is real and the real is reeling. We are the reality distortion fielding. We are the reality distortion fielding. The falsehood will tell you intuition's faulty. The falsehood will tell you facts aren't factual actually. We are the reality distortion fielding. We are the reality distortion fielding. We are the reality distortion fielding. The falsehood will groom you not to question, just believe. The falsehood can rob you of the choice you would perceive. We are the reality distortion fielding. We are the reality distortion fielding. The falsehood will tell you it's the one and only. The falsehood may tell you it's the one and only. We are the reality distortion fielding. We are the reality distortion fielding. The falsehood will sow doubt intuition knows things. We are the reality distortion feeling. This is the mindness at the mystery font. Yes. 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 Ladies and gentlemen, we are tracking an incoming image. This seems to be a familiar resonance. We've seen this before. This is believed to be an image. Ladies and gentlemen, as many of you may well know, please sit down. This may be the falsehood. This image is a representation of the bandwidth of meaning, theorized to be a collective storage, essentially the schema of collected memory, imagination as sentience field that minds access across space and time. It is theorized that thought is multimyriad and that we have access to creatures like ourselves, more so to family or people we've known. And while not exactly DNA memory, it is DNA accessed, potentially, in part. That we are, through morphic resonance, as theorized by Rupert Sheldrake, liaised, or accessing through something like fields, a band of thought. Somehow we are interacting with this and accessing some amount of information or knowledge, knowing, memory, habit, habituation, tendency, gnosis, understanding, or a bandwidth. There is something. There is something that our current strictures of materialism in science don't necessarily account for. And the mystery font is open to the idea that morphic resonance is indeed an apt description of something that we are connected to and connected with, that is part of us, or we access, and is us. And this is part of the Mysterium Tremendum, is it not? And so this image of the falsehood, of at least, if not the falsehood across time, as potentially a personality who reemerges, sometimes in multiple personalities in an era, but at least as an ongoing specter, but potentially that this is a morphing image between a victim of the falsehood and the falsehood, or potentially the falsehood and their mask. But that somewhere in this image there is a glimpse of the falsehood. We don't see a normal visual image, but this readout is, there is some amount of three-dimensional information. It's almost a little more like peripheral vision at a time. Something like echolocation, although a bit sharper in some ways. This is also, there's not AI, but there is some amount of artistic license working to try to render what is captured in the bandwidth of meaning in this particular actuation of this fragment that is theorized to be indeed of the falsehood. Who possibly could the falsehood be? It's almost impossible to say. It might be Snuffleupagus today. It might be anyone, really. I'm not sure who I might say. Ladies and gentlemen, the presidents of the United States of America have asked that we look in our hearts and in our mirrors, in our coffee cups, in our bowls of cereal, and in our sugar pots. Good gracious almighty, happy days, and yet days of, well, someone's your, but heck, what's it all for, yes? That is to say, what is true? What is fact? And what is a good how do you do? Is a good how do you do really worth a how do you do in today's how do you doolers? Doer? I think a good how do you do might not really be worth very much. Is a good how do you do worth anything? Is a good how do you do worth anything? Is a good how do you do worth anything? The falsehood. Who has dawned this age? Ladies and gentlemen, and siblings of all ages, who has dawned the falsehood? Certainly, we all do from time to time. We all do lose, even our minds. But who remembers before? Not just the before times of before COVID, but who remembers before the golden escalator shower? Who remembers before the golden escalator shower of abuse, of calling a trickle down to our neighbors, a golden shower of abuse, escalating harm against our neighbors, calling our neighbors sexual assaulters, using the word rapists, that a candidate for president of the United States started with a shocking boundary violation meant to normalize doing the unthinkable as a show of dominance. That is deeply fascistic and abusive and terroristic. That should have been where we stopped him. But for sure, when he said he would keep us in suspense, I think that might have been it. Why did Donald Trump come to mind? I suppose there's something a little bit like, are those mouths? Those are a little bit like the rings of whitish glow around Donald Trump's eyes. Just a little bit lighter. That does look a little bit like, well, the falsehood has often slipped in to lie in Donald Trump's place. Think of how many times we've seemingly found that Donald Trump has deceived us, but seemingly in every case, it has always been found to be the falsehood who has crept in and changed something or simply replaced Donald Trump when no one was looking. The insidious and irreparable falsehood who has struck so many people, but who indeed knows what evil and how many people the falsehood has struck. The falsehood knows. Who has donned this age of falsehood? And the nose it grows, the gnosis of this falsehood, growing Pinocchiosis. Who oaks this Pinocchio's brogue, this growing flow of nose, though, the growing Pinocchiosis, the growing gnosis of Pinocchiosis. Good, gross gravy, Pinocchio, yuckus, yuck, yuck. You don't want to gnosis owe this. You don't want to owe this gnosis. Oh. And the shadow below the nose that this long nose of Pinocchiosis leaves is just a square shadow. Is that a shadow, or are you not shaving under the Pinocchiosis there? That's a strange little square mustache you're growing there. What's happening there? You look just a little bit like the falsehood. Do you know? Oh, that's right. Yes, that's right, Scoop Troop. That's right, Scoop Troop. This is a perfect time to grab your handy-dandy Darvo card. When you think you're talking to someone like Donald Trump, someone who has been replaced repeatedly and mistaken from us by the pernicious falsehood, feel free to slap Darvo on the windshield or pull it up on your view screen or into your readout. Sometimes it's just good to have on the visor. Darvo can help you remember that a predator may, if accounting for themselves suddenly and wanting to evade that accountability, they may deny without any factual basis, and without any factual basis, potentially attack. Deny and then attack to discredit the person who would ask them to account or offer testimony, offer witness, that they would be attacked. So the D of deny, the A of attack, and RVO would be to reverse the victim and offender. That if you were to run into the falsehood, or anyone that the falsehood has been known to replace, even someone in your own life, well, someone like Donald Trump, I suppose, in terms of someone who is in your life and who has access to your email and sends you messages and knows things about you and has people gathering and writing that they will take over the country in 2025 to create a dictatorship. That kind of, that is, I don't feel so, that is, that's a lot. Oh, that's a lot. Ooh. Well, Scoop Troop, I have returned to a happy and safe place in the font. You know, Darvo is just a good thing to have in mind, even because we can try to evade ourselves. And being aware of shapes that evading accountability can take for anyone. Tools can be useful, and it's good to use them appropriately. The imagination of democracy must have space for you to find calm meditation, for your mind to stretch out, and for your brain to wave. Are you letting your mind wave? Hopefully it's not flagging terribly. Hopefully you feel you are a resonant bastion of flow of the breath and wind of democracy, and the synaptic flow. This is the mindedness, though. This is one part of the mindedness. Kindness. Good gray. Shh. Good gray. Good gray. Good gray. Good gray. Shh. Good gray. Good gray. Shh. Us. Good gray. Good gray. Shh. Us. Good gray. Shh. Us. Good gracious. This is the mystery font and the mindedness. I'm Tim. I'm host at the font, and golly, that's an interesting assortment of information we're tracking through. Happenstance. What? That's what this place is also? Gosh. Wow. I'm honored to be here. Sometimes I remember more. It's a constant restoration of executive function because we are recovering from betrayal trauma. We are in the midst of undergoing continuing betrayal trauma And there is some amount of ability to find with meditation to heal, and with professional help or responsible medicinal aid, with care and with mental resiliency skills and support, we can learn to, even amidst animosity and attack and chronic mistreatment, we can foster executive function once again, or amidst these things. And it is not easy, and it's not fun, but it's way more fun than not being able to manifest that thing which we're afraid we won't see again, but it can become. Even amidst the threat of fascism from far-right extremism such as MAGA and white nationalism, a Nazi perversion of Jesus Christ mission, and other far-right extremism, we are the reality distortion fielding, and as humanity we have faced the cancer of fascism before in clarified moments, and let this be one where we show kindness to help people infected by those terrorisms to find healthcare and mental pharmacology and therapy and support, and now no availability of ways to carry those things out, and accountability if there should be attempts, because it's unacceptable to allow that kind of cancer to spread anymore. We don't let people fester cancer that they get in their leg because their leg feels like it just wants to keep letting it grow. We don't let people do that with cancer of the mind. I think maybe we try to have limits on what we allow people to spread. And intolerance is the one thing we won't tolerate, essentially. And we try to be good and true to that. And having such hopefully universal and equity and equality-based ideas trounced by betrayal trauma, it is essential to reconstitute our, and repair and make maybe stronger than before, boundaries of steel about what we can expect and must be able to expect as humanity of our leaders, because we are being deeply degraded by the way people talk about democracy and our country in terms of us as human beings, and it's truly an evil thing to normalize. It's an evil thing to participate in. It's an evil thing to allow, I think, if we have a chance to stop this kind of dehumanization, especially, well, it includes dehumanization of ourselves that we take on in some sort of Stockholm syndrome, like taking one for the team when we are simply the marks, or marks with a comfy apartment, and complicity and harm. We can be different. I think this right now, it's not maybe that it's more possible than before, but if it's not, then maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it doesn't need to be more possible than before, but I think maybe it is. I think there's enough information out there that that can be trackable and checked, that even with the incredible disinformation and misinformation campaigns of MAGA and the Koch brothers and extremism, purveyors of lies like Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones and Elon Musk, even though that stuff is out there and pernicious and vast and powerful, that fact and truth can be fostered and protected. I do believe. And it takes ample work. It takes, I believe, reconstituting things like a fairness doctrine. It takes things that we need to build the will to do to make democracy safe for everyone. If it's not safe for everyone, it's not safe. This is the kind prehension that if it's not safe for everyone, it's not safe. You are the resonation of love's imagination. You are more than the brain, you're the brain awakened. You're the radiant rain, parallel against hate, parallel against pain. Radio science brain. Emancipation aim, emancipation aid. Imagination aim relayed. This is the mindness made me this way. Radio science brain. Yes, such as this. For instance, life contained. Imagination aid of this strain. From all brains to all brains, imagination aid. Mind is made this contagious and make thus. Radio science brain imagination aid contain imagination aid mind made this contagious gray ray clarion game imagination may be named radio science brain. Particle matter wave refrain. This is the mindless agency craving, waving not in vain. Anyway, let us free, let us feel and see imagination real. Let's wield this feeling field, give it a real, reveal imagination, break the seal. Imagine this will heal imagination. Easy keel. Imagination. Steal to tomorrow. Not borrow, not loot, but take easily. Not steal from anyone or anywhere. Just come. Pretend not falsely, but take that space as you give some. You are not destined manifestly. You're projecting holistically. Let's guess that's possible. Let's guess that postulate holds. Let's whirl it to birdlets unfurl wings. That's first. Imagination on earth. By nature, your creature has wings or prehensile digits on your legs or wings or arms. I'm thinking we are the renovation of this imagination, this frame, this freight we name radio science brain mind made this aid relay. A comprehension possible, we might prehend an iceberg coming this way today. Imagination aid mind made this outrageous aid from a name and a run or two played. Radio science brain imagination aid this juice from a squeeze worth squeezing. And again I play radio science brain imagination aid mind made. This is the mighty agile creator create in you. There is one, we are all created with humans. Different ways we have to make freight, make sane activation of gifts anyway. This is the mind that's made me contain a perversion, a perturbing of melody coming to me. Actually something presses me to see where this music's reaching, with or without me. It's not that it's imperfecting it, it's that sets a conversation, it's intersecting other intersect. This is came, come, I did not project. I knew one thing would need another, but this is the moment it comes coming now, mother. Might make invention, create. This is the mindness pretending age-laden ache. This is the mindness pretending age-laden ache. Radio science brain, I made this. It's weird and it breaks imagination. Aid might make this contagious bus omnibus thruple cosmonaut clutch of kindness came, it caved in. Cumberbatch. It was all going towards Clumberbatch. I don't know where I would otherwise gain the deft finesse with which I could just deliver that. It's really all been heading towards that, towards Clumberbatch. I'm so glad we got finally to Clumberbatch, and I'm just going to keep going because it can only get better. And that's the lesson of The Matrix, the first film, I think, is that I think you don't stop going. I think you don't forget that you've transcended. I think the idea of the second Matrix film is, now what? Like, we actually allow that there's struggle in learning, but this is someone who is drastically leveled up. And what now happens? Because there is a thing that can happen. There's a reticence in us to try to see heroes in action. We were afraid to see Luke Skywalker. We were afraid to try to imagine what it looks like for good to exist, having fought for a place to exist. Then how does that spirit in that person foster good for real? It would be good to give ourselves that kind of thing. To trust that we can envision it, and that means trusting we can be at is closer if we can envision it. And the ability to trust that we can envision something like that and make it real and that it's worth it and fosterable, and that we do it. That's central to our health as a species, I think, as sentient beings. Goodness gracious, goodness gracious. It is Radio Science Brain, and this comprehension that I hope evolves amidst us of what's coming, that we assemble a comprehension of what fascism will do if we do not step in nonviolently now to make sure that it doesn't create harm. That we have a responsibility to do something kind and just and careful, to call for conversation or healing or accountability. We have a union that can be protected by people who have a memory not merely of corruption of the past, but of some standards that are worth making sure we can bring forward or recover. Not of great again, but of basic civic good, such as the Fairness Doctrine, or some of the things that were lost with Citizens United being law of the land. What does the comprehension prehend? What do we stop? If we successfully prehend what Project 2025 and Agenda 47 propose, then the comprehension apprehends people who would do harm through those mechanisms and helps the conversation flourish about what it is for people to declare that this sort of thing is coming, and to apprehend people who would work to make it happen in terms of fostering totalitarian dictatorship. We are the reality distortion fielding. And how are we, and how do we foster comprehension? How is that done? And how do we remain calmly vigilant, even at times with urgency, but to know and recognize hypervigilance is important. How do we do this?
I made a speech. I looked out. The field was, it looked like 1.5 million people. They showed a field where there were practically nobody standing there.
Why would someone
The new White House press
lie.
secretary, Sean Spicer, gave his
In a
first
way
press
everybody
briefing.
can see.
He was also highly critical of
if
some
they're
media
not
organizations
trying to
of the
make
way he
people
felt they had
swallow whatever they
misrepresented the
give
number
them.
of people who'd attended Friday's inauguration ceremony.
No one had numbers because the National Park Service, which controls the National Mall, does not put any out. This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe.
It's
It
still
does
out
not
there.
excuse, and you did not answer the question.
I did
You-
answer
no,
your
you
question.
did not. You did
Yes,
not
I
answer
did.
the question of why the president asked the White House press secretary to come out in front of the podium for the first time and utter a falsehood. Why did he do that? It undermines the credibility of the entire White House press office
No,
on
it
day
doesn't.
one.
Don't be so overly dramatic about it, Chuck. You're saying it's a falsehood, and they're giving Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that. But the point
Wait a minute.
remains.
Alternative.
This was the largest ever.
I made a speech. I looked out. The field it looked like a million and a half people. They showed a field where there were practically nobody standing there.
The new White House press secretary, Sean Spicer, gave his first press briefing. He was also highly critical of some media organizations of the way he felt they had misrepresented the number of people who'd attended Friday's inauguration ceremony.
No one had numbers because the National Park Service, which controls the National Mall, does not put any out.
Why would someone demonstrably lie? And make a show of it? Why would they do that with their first act and a preemptive act, a surprise punishing first press briefing? A surprise punishment from Mad Daddy. A shocking boundary violation and surprise attack against the legitimacy of the press and the legitimacy of the press to call the president, then new president, to account for virulent and provable lies in the face of this massive lie and silly lie. Massive and silly because it's provable and unnecessary. The lie that his crowd was much larger than Obama's was absurd. But contrary to photographs and numerous forms of evidence and record keeping and false reports and characterizations by the Trump campaign and the new administration, they demonstrably lied and called it alternative fact. And that's a fascist playbook act. There's not a reason to do that and lean into that unless you want to hold over someone that you may not level with them. You'd rather keep the option to openly level them. And a ball of yarn that leads us out as we follow a thread, as we follow a yarn out of a labyrinth, that ball of yarn is called a clue. An intersection of information such as that comes together into a ball, and we can read those clues. We are the reality distortion fielding, aren't you? We are the reinforcements of love's imagination, aren't you?